Welcome to Descriptive Statistics for Continuous Variables. This video provides an overview of continuous variables and their associated descriptive statistics, instructions for processing the test run, and guidance on documenting the results. Examples of continuous variables include variables such as age, weight, and test score. Continuous variables contain numbers that go continuously along a number line in both negative and positive directions. Essentially, a continuous variable contains traditional numbers, the kind of numbers that you can enter into a calculator. Consider this list of ages. If you needed to communicate a summary of this list to another person, you might say something like, "This is a list of 50 ages, mostly in their 20s. While that wouldn't be wrong, we can be more precise. Considering that this is a fairly short list, this kind of communication is feasible. However, what if the list was 500 numbers or 500,000 numbers? In such cases, the numbers would span multiple pages and be considerably more difficult to derive meaningful summary estimates just by casually looking at them. Since datasets can contain multiple variables with any number of records, it may not be feasible to conceive and convey a proper summary of all of the figures just by visual inspection. Instead of trying to make such estimates, summary statistics comprehensively communicates the contents of a variable with a brief handful of numerical results. This list of 9 descriptive statistics can comprehensively summarize any continuous variable no matter how long the list of numbers is. We'll now explore each one. The n is simply the total amount of numbers contained within the variable. Consider this data set. It contains 10 numbers, hence the n equals 10. The mean is the formal statistical term for the average. The abbreviation for the mean is the capital M. The mean uses the same simple formula as the average. It's the sum of all the numbers divided by the n. First, add up all of the numbers, which is 247. Then divide by the n, which is 10. The mean equals 247 divided by 10, which is 24.7. The median is the middle number. To find the median, sort the numbers from lowest to highest or from highest to lowest, and identify the middle number or numbers. If the n is even, there will be 2 numbers in the middle. The median is the mean of the 2 middle numbers. In this case, the median is 24.5. If the n is odd, there'll be only 1 number in the middle. In this case, the median is 86. Notice that since the median represents the middle figure, half of the data in the variable is less than the median, 6 and 24, and half of the data is greater than the median, 91 and 99. The mode is the most common number in the variable. There's an easy way to remember this. Notice that the words mode and most both start with MO. Consider this data set. Each number appears only once, except for 24, which appears twice. Since 24 appears more times than any other number, the mode is 24. A variable can have more than one mode. Consider this slightly different data set, where there are 2 24s and 2 31s. This variable has 2 modes, 24 and 31. The standard deviation indicates how much diversity there is within a variable. When numbers are grouped closely around the mean, this produces a lower standard deviation. Numbers that depart, or deviate more from the mean, produce higher standard deviation. To illustrate this point, consider the heights of these 3 people. Their mean height is 67.33 inches. Notice how similar their heights are, 67 inches, 68 inches, and 67 inches. 2 are slightly lower than the mean, and 1 is slightly higher than the mean. In other words, their heights don't deviate much from the mean, hence the relatively low standard deviation of 0.57. Now consider the heights of these 3 people. They too have a mean of 67.33. However, notice that there is considerably more variability among their heights. They deviate considerably more above or below the mean, thus producing a standard deviation of 20.74, more than 35 times higher than the first group. If all we had was the means, we might be misled to think that the distribution of heights in the first group are the same as the second group. The variance is the standard deviation squared. We'll compute the variance of these three numbers taken from the heights of the second group. We know that the standard deviation is 20.77. The variance is the standard deviation squared. 20.77 squared is 20.77 times 20.77. The variance for this variable is 431.39. The minimum is the smallest number in the variable. In this case, the minimum is 19. The maximum is the largest number in the variable. In this case, the maximum is 31. The range is the difference between the maximum and the minimum. Mathematically, the range is the maximum minus the minimum. 31 minus 19 equals 12. We see that these ages span a range of 12 years. We'll process an example of descriptive statistics for continuous variables using this data set. Begin by running the Excel DIY statistics file. Select the Descriptive Continuous tab. Then delete the sample data. Click on the A column and press the Delete key. Next, you can enter the data manually starting with the variable name at A1, followed by each number. Alternatively, you can copy and paste the data into Excel from another source. The documentation template provides guidance in composing thorough and organized results. First, describe the study or research question. A researcher wants to understand the age of participants. Next, describe the sample size, the N. A total of 50 participants were recruited. Then, describe the mean and standard deviation. The mean age was 24, standard deviation 2.86 years. Finally, describe additional results, the mode, minimum, maximum, and range. Typically, the variance, the standard deviation squared, is not included in results documentation. The most common age is 25. The youngest was 18 and the oldest was 31, spanning a range of 13 years. If you've written your responses as complete sentences, as a final step, you can remove the headers and close up the space between the sentences. This will render a viable results section. This concludes this video.